All right, good morning. It is Thursday, the 22nd of September, and the class is AWD 1100 C# programming. And I literally just sent this out, and I apologize for the lateness of it. Been a little hectic morning, but that's no excuse. All right, so today I'm going to continue going over some problems that I've written myself. I've also written one or two that are similar to what your pretest and your test will be. All right. So I wanted to make sure we had a chance to go over those. Now, tomorrow, Friday, is our typical lab day, and it will be a lab day. I'm going to email you out the Chapter 8 pretest tomorrow, even though I'm not going to go over it until Tuesday. It's just one less thing for me to worry about. All right. You have no work due this weekend. So if you are all caught up through Chapter 7, you have no homework this weekend. All right. On Monday, I'm going to go through some of the Chapter 8 assigned either lab or the homework problems. I haven't looked at them. I will this weekend. Tuesday, again, I will go over the pretest, but as I always do, I won't start till 9:30. And Wednesday, you will take the hands-on test. All right. So again, as it says here, please remember the Chapter 8 written test, labs, and homework are not due until a week from this Sunday. All right. So in other words, virtually everybody who's in the class, even if you've turned in no work, unless you have not contacted me at all within the last 2 or 3 weeks, will be marked as present. All right. So with that said, I'm going to jump in here. Give me a second. I'll change my share in just a second, but we're going to continue on with some of these array examples. So let me change my share. And hopefully, other than having to run the program, and when they're console programs, I won't have to be doing a lot of changing my share today. That said, I could very well be wrong, but I don't think I am. So, all right, so I'm in Visual Studio. And you may or may not remember that yesterday we went through a couple grades programs. The first one was a console program that looked like this. All right. And basically what it did was it allowed you to input 10 grades. It did check to make sure that each grade was not empty. It did check to make sure that each grade was numeric. It did check to make sure that each grade was between 0 and 100. We used a looping mechanism for doing this. So here we inputted the grades. All right. Here we made our checks to see if we could convert it and if it was within range. All right. And if all that was true, then we calculated the number of A's, the number of B's, the number of C's, the number of D's, the number of F's, where 90 through 100 was an A, 80 to 89 was a B, 70 to 79 was a C, 60 to 69 was a D, and 0 to 59 was an F. So we did those and we wrote out how many A's, how many B's, how many C's, how many D's, how many F's we had. Then we also figured out our highest grade in that group, our lowest grade in that group, and our average grade in that group. Now, I haven't done it yet, but by the end of the period today, I am going to create a Git repository, put all this stuff out there, including the stuff that we're going to go over today. All right, so it'll be all out there. If that can help you, great. All right. And with this program, this console one, if I run it, and I guess I will have to change my share so you can see it. Well, I know we did this yesterday, but again, I'm going over this, for lack of better words, for a little bit of consistency here. So we came in here, and for the grades, again, if you put nothing in there, it didn't take it. If you put non-numeric in there, it didn't take it. If you put a value over 100, it didn't take it, or less than 0, it didn't take it. All right, so I'm just going to put in here 56, 67, so that is 1 F and 1 D, 77, which is 1 C, 88, which is 1 B, 99, which is 1 A. So I now have 1 F, 1 D, 1 C, 1 B, and 1 A. So I'm just going to reverse them. So 99, 88, 77, 67, and 56. Once I do that, as you can see in here, the program did correctly figure out the total number of A, B, C, D, and F grades, the high grade, the low grade, and then it went in and added up all the grades and divided it by 10. So indeed, that one does work. All right, just leave that like that. Go back into Visual Studio, and I will tell you, all right, the next one that we did, I didn't go much further with it, and I want to explain to you why. Try to basically do the same program but do it with, make it GUI, all right? It is fairly difficult to do all the stuff that I wanted to do here, all right? And be able to make those checks. If I didn't have to make any checks, I'm going to show you that in just a moment. If I didn't have to make any checks, everything would work just fine. Now, one of the things that I did in this program, just so you see it, is when you run it, all of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 buttons, those 8 buttons right there are all disabled. So hopefully you can see this when I, whoops, I got to change my start project, sorry. But these 8 buttons are now disabled. They were supposed to remain disabled until I'd entered in all 10 grades. Doesn't work like that right now. All right, so I made a couple changes. If I put in 67 and I click calculate, it is a D, but notice all of the buttons now are enabled. That is just a property in your properties window. So if you want something to appear, so for instance, if I wanted, if for whatever reason, I didn't want you to be able to do anything in this particular field right there, I could set the enabled property to false. It's not the same as read only. All right.
Could you swap your share real quick so we can see that?
Pardon me?
Could you swap your share real quick?
Sure. I
Thank
will
you.
do that. Thank you. All right, so hopefully now you can see it. So again, if you take something and you disable it, it's there, but you really can't do anything at all with it. Nothing, basically. All right, if you make something read only, like it doesn't make sense to make a button read only. It doesn't make any sense. You can make a text box read only. All right, labels are read only by default. All right. But what I'm trying to get across to you is we've never really looked at the enabled property. There's also, and I didn't use it on here, but there's a visible property. So literally, if I had taken these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 buttons and set their visible property to false at the beginning of the program, you wouldn't have seen them. It literally wouldn't have been there. All right, then later, if I wanted to show them, that I'd have to set the visible property back to true again. So again, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. All right. What I've done though is rather than using these examples kind of that I've just shown you right here, to be honest with you, they kind of stink, this example right here. So I've written a couple of other ones and we're going to use those. And the other thing is with those, these are going to be more reminiscent of what's on your homework. All right. And what'll be on your pretest and what'll be on your actual test. All right, that's why I decided to make these changes. So let me go back into Visual Studio. All right, so with this one right here, like I said, I'm just the heck with it. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create two different programs right now. We'll have at least one done by the time we go on break and maybe both, but we'll see. So I'm going to come in here to the solution. I'm going to right mouse click, choose add new project. And again, you don't have to worry about keying this in because you're going to get this GitHub repo that you can pull down by the end of class today. All right, so I'm going to create a console app And I'm just going to call it random console. And if you say why random console, you'll see in just a couple of minutes. All right, so I've got this file here. And again, I'm not going to use any of these, but I am going to say using, static system.console. So again, I don't have to keep writing console.readline, console.writeline. It's not that it's that big a thing. It isn't. All right, but did I save this? I wrote some comments. I want to see if I saved them. Otherwise, I'll have to type them in again, which is no biggie, but I don't want to waste anybody's time doing this stuff if I can help it here. So there we go. All right. So I'm going to put some comments right here. Let's quickly go over these. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to create an integer array. All right. When we create the array, it won't have anything in it. So when we create it, it's automatically those 25 locations, mailboxes, slots, whatever you want to call them, will all be initialized to 0. Then we will call a routine, and that routine will fill the array up with 25 random numbers that are between 1 and 100. All right, we'll do that in one routine. Then we'll call another routine to just verify that what we did worked. So we'll print out the values in the array in their original order. All right. After that, we'll sort the array and then print out the value of the array after it's been sorted. Now you're all smart enough to know that if I sort an array, if I grab the first element that's in there, if it's been sorted, that's the smallest element. So we'll print that out. After we sort the array, we'll run the reverse method on it, which will reverse it. So as sorted puts it in an ascending order, running a reverse on ascending will make it descending. Then we will print out the largest element, which again will be element 0. Then we'll go up and we'll add all 25 elements up together and we'll print out the sum of that. Then we'll take that sum, divide it by 25 to get our average. All right, so hopefully everything that I just said to you, hopefully at least, hopefully it all makes sense. All right, now when I run this for you, I'm going to show you a couple things that we have talked about, but not in a lot of depth and breadth of coverage thus far. So the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to make a program constant. All right, and I'm going to have const int max, and that's just, whoops, that should have been int max, and I'm going to set it equal to 25. And that'll be the number of array elements. Okay, did I have to do that? Of course not. Okay, but later if I want to change this from 25 to 100, I can do it. And this is the only place again that I'll have to change it. All right, so I'm going to also in here, this will be one of my program variables. So program variables. Okay, and the first one I'll say int bracket bracket numbers equals new int max. Now that has to start making at least a little bit of sense to you. What I mean by that is we are creating a brand new array. That brand new array will have in it 25 slots or 25 locations. Each one of them will have a value of 0. And each one will have a value of 0 because, all right, because we haven't put anything in there yet. All right, so we're going to write this. And the idea behind main here is main is going to truly be a driver. In other words, everything that I've got left in main here, about 6 or 7 lines, I'm just going to call routines. Now the routines don't exist yet. So every time I put in a new array or a new routine rather, like fill array, and I'm going to pass in numbers, which means I'm going to pass the array into it. I get an error because of course, fill array hasn't been written yet. But as soon as I type in static void fill array, all right, and I say int bracket, bracket, N for numbers, it doesn't matter. And I do that, you'll notice my errors have all gone. All right. So this is my driver. In an ideal world, this will be my driver. All right. So right here, I'm just going to put a begin main, and then here at the end, oops, end main. Okay. So in here, what do I want to do? Not really a whole heck of a lot. When you want to work with random numbers, we talked about this a little bit, so it's a little review, but you say a random, and then you give it a name. So I can just call it R. It doesn't matter. Random R equals new random. Now, I'm going to expect that what I just said to you right there made absolutely no sense. Random R equal new random. This is the kind of stuff that once we get into chapter 12, which will be in a couple weeks, we're going to start going over. And then hopefully at that time, a line of code like line 43 that you see here will make sense. So I'll put a comment here that'll say fill array with 100 random numbers between 1 and 100. Okay. I didn't have to put that in. I'm just trying to be a little, here a little descriptive. So I'm going to put in a for loop. And I always call my loop control variable in my for loop. A lot of people call it I or J or K or whatever. I call mine LCV because LCV stands for loop control variable. Again, that's just the way I do things. Oh, not numbers. And length. All right. The good news is, literally, there's only one line of code we put in here. That's it. So let's take a second and talk about what's going on here. Again, I don't expect this to make sense. What we're doing there, just so you hear it, is we're creating a new instance of the random number class that we're calling R. All right. This says 100 times I want to do this. You'll notice that the name of our array is numbers. So when I pass it in, this is the actual parameter name. I have to use numbers. But inside of here, that's the formal parameter name. I could have said numbers again. It would have been fine. But just to show you that it doesn't have to be, I made it N. It's a little less typing. So this says 100 times, I want you to take the current array location, which will be N0 through N99, and I want you to call the random method to give me a random number between 1 and 100. That's all I want you to do. So hopefully at least, what I'm saying in there, it makes at least a little bit of sense. All right, so we called fill array, and we want to come in there then and literally fill up the array with those random numbers. Well, then let's come back up here to our driver in main, and I'm going to call this print out array in original order. All right. And I get the error because, again, I haven't written that. All right. So I'm going to write it down here. So static void. Notice as soon as I put that in there, I don't want a semicolon there, and put that in, I now have no errors here, and my error there went away. That routine's not doing a thing, but there is something there. All right. So in here, I need to print out the array, so I've got to pass the array. So again, I'll just come in here and say int bracket bracket, and again, I'll call it N. All right, so that's numbers. Okay. And that numbers right there is now N in here. All right, so let's write this particular program. Okay. Now, with what we're doing, it's not that it's hard, but I'm going to create an output string that I'm going to call output str, and I'm going to initialize it. All right, so I'm going to give it an initial value. It's just going to say for right now, the array in original order, and then I'll put a new line in there. Now, right now, if I ran that and printed it, that's all it's going to say. Well, I don't want it to say that. I want it to loop through the array and print out each number. So I'm going to steal this code that I put in here from before. Why? Because that's going to allow me to loop through this 100 times, so I don't have to write it again. So 100 times, I want to add, I shouldn't even say 100 times, this is 25 times. I want to add, so output str plus equal n LCV plus a blank. Now, again, do I expect that to make sense to you? No. But when we call this, it's going to say the array in original order, and then it'll put a new line in there, so there'll be a line afterwards. And then I'm adding each of the 25 of the 25 numbers. So this will be what's in location N0 followed by a blank space, then what's in location N1 followed by a blank space until it gets to the end. So it'll do what's in location N24 and a blank space. So then when I'm done, all I have to do is a write line of output str. Now, if I do it like that and run this, it'll run, but it'll fly right off the screen. So let's do a read line when we get done with that. So what should happen when we run this is it should first call this fill array and fill the array up with 25 random numbers. Then we're telling it to print out those 25 random numbers. All right, so let me do a file save all and run the program. And after again, I have to go back and change my start project. All right, and let me run that, and I will have to change my share, of course, so that you can see it. And I'll do that right now. All right. So what do we have here? There's my array in original order. You'll notice if you count those, there's 25 numbers right there. And there's nothing special about that. But what I wanted to show you was a lot of times when you work with arrays, all right, you do end up working with different things with random numbers. And that's why I decided to give you a program like this. When we get done with this example, we're going to rewrite the same exact example, but we're going to write it as a GUI. So that's what we've got so far. When I hit enter, boom, it just goes back. Okay, nothing special there. So we've got that. So the next thing that we said that we wanted to do here was we wanted to sort the array and then print it out. So back here in my main right now, this is my driver. I've set up the array and then I've called two routines. Well, now I'm going to call another one called sort array and print out. And I'll pass the array in again. All right, so let me grab all this. And then down here, we will write that routine. So static void sort array and print out numbers. Okay. And again, this will not be an extremely long thing that we're about to write in here. All right.
Can you swap your screen?
Thank you. Thank you. I promise I will, literally in seconds. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. I do appreciate that. All right. Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, good. All right. So now in here, again, what do I have to do? Not a whole heck of a lot. All right. What do I mean? Well, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to again do a string and call it output. What you call this is up to you, but I usually call mine output str, and I'm going to set it equal to the array in ascending order. spell ascending right. And put a \n at the end. I also want a \n at the beginning here because otherwise it's going to be right under what I just printed. Okay, so we've got that. All right, big deal. Well, it is a big deal because all we have to type in here now is array dot, and you'll notice, hopefully you can see this on your screen, there's a bunch of things I can call now. And one of those things I can call is sort. Sort what? Sort n, because that's the array. All right, and now I can steal this code from right here and paste it in. That's all I've got. So what is this doing? All right, the last one, and I should put a couple comments in each one of these. So again, this one fills the array, so fills the numbers array with 25 random numbers, 1 through 100. We maybe even said that before. That's fine. So we've got that. This one, and I tried to be very descriptive with the names, prints out the numbers array in its original order. All right. And then this next one that we just did, this one sorts the array, sorts the numbers array in ascending order, and then prints out the numbers array in its ascending order. All right. So we just have a little message here that says the array in ascending order. This is where all the magic happens. So that's going to take whatever 25 numbers that we get, and it should sort them. So originally when they print out, they should be in no kind of order whatsoever. And then after we print them out, all right, then they will be in ascending order. At least they should be. All right, now I don't need that read line that we had here anymore. Okay, so let me save this. I'm going to do a file, save all. I'm going to run it and immediately change my share so you can see this. So there we got it. So the two sets of numbers that you see on your screen right here are identical to one another, except for the order. They are the same 25 numbers. But first we saw the 25 numbers, as you can see there, we saw it in its original order. Now we see it in ascending order. So you can tell by looking, the smallest value is 1. All right, and that's what we're going to print out next. So I got to come back. I've got to change my share to go back to Visual Studio, but we're going to do that one next. And again, I'm just going over this, and I'm taking for granted that if you have questions, you're going to ask. And if for some reason I screw up again with the screen share, you're going to tell me like you've been doing, and I appreciate that. All right. So in my main, we filled the array. We printed out the array in original order. We sorted the array and printed it out. All right, next, we're going to display the smallest array element. Now, when we do this, we don't have to pass in the entire array. All we need to pass in is the first element that's in the array. We could pass the whole thing in, but really all we have to pass in here is numbers 0, which remember is the first array element. And again, I'm getting this error because, you know, and I know you know this already by now, I haven't written that yet. So I'm going to write that now. And I just keep putting this stuff underneath what I just did. So display the value of the smallest array element. Maybe not the best name, but it'll work. All right. Now, it's an integer. I can call this whatever I want. I don't have to say even that it's an array because I'm only passing in one piece of 25 pieces in the array. So I'll just call this smallest. All right. And then all I have to do in here, this is a real nice one to write, all right, because there's really nothing to do. So I can say string output. In fact, I don't even need to do that. I can just do a write line. All right, say the value of the smallest element is, and then put in there plus, I'll put this on a new line so it doesn't scroll off the screen, smallest dot to string. That's everything for that routine. There's nothing else that I have to do. All right, I will put a read line afterwards so this doesn't fly off the screen. And again, I will put a \n in here so it doesn't run together from the last one. I can remove this read line now. So what have we done so far? Main is a true driver. It fills the array, it prints it out in original order, it sorts it and prints it out, then it displays the smallest one. That is what main ideally is supposed to be doing. So I'm going to do a file, save all. Now remember, each time we run this, we're getting a different set of 25 numbers. So last time the smallest was 1 and the largest was 99. This time they very well could be different. All right, so let me run this and let me change my share. All right, and what you see, again, now notice that the smallest is still 1, but the largest before was 99, now it's 89. All right, so now we've, again, got the array in original order, we've got it in ascending order, and we've got the smallest element. All right, let me go back, change my share again. All right, and next, I'm going to actually just copy both of these because they're almost identical. So I'm going to copy these. I'll quickly comment them out because I'm going to get errors. No, in fact, I guess I wouldn't. So here I'm going to reverse array and print out. And here I'm going to display the largest element. Okay. Now, this one for now, at least I'll just comment out because we're going to rewrite that in just a second. So this will reverse and print that out. So let's do that one next. So again, reverse the current array order, the current ascending array order, making the numbers array in descending order. Then print it out. So there that is. And again, this is going to be an integer array. So in bracket, bracket, again, I'll call it n. All right. And so we're going to write that one now. Okay. And once we've written this, then we'll get the largest number. So we're making headway in here, for lack of better words. All right. Now, when we do this, when we go and we put this array, all right, when we go in and we put this array into, we want to call, virtually it's this one. It's this routine. Except rather than now than calling array.sort, which we've already done, we'll call array.reverse. So I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to put the whole thing in here. But now I'm going to say the array in descending order. Now, I don't have to sort it again. I can, but I don't have to. But let's leave it in there. So I'll say now array.reverse n. So now that should now display the array in descending order. So let me put my read line at the end here. All right. Let me save this and run the program again. I will change my share. And you'll notice now what I have. There's the original array. There it is in ascending order. There's the smallest element. Now look, 96, 95, 89, 89, 88, 86, etc. Now it's in descending order. So the next thing that we're going to do, and we'll do it fairly quickly, is we'll get the largest element, which again is element 1. So what I'm going to do basically is just copy in the one from the smallest and rename it so it doesn't say smallest, so it says largest, because it's the same thing. So stop the run, go back into Visual Studio. All right, come down here. So the next one that we're going to do is display largest array element. So print out value of largest array element, static void. All right. This will again be an int, and we'll call it largest. All right. I'm going to grab the one we did before where we displayed the value of the smallest. All right. So I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard. And now we're going to put that in there, followed by our read line. All right, don't worry, I've got an error, but we'll fix it. Okay, so this just has to be largest. And so does this. So all we're doing here is we're displaying the first array element. And because of the fact that we sorted the array into descending order, the value of the 0th element, the first one that's in the array, is our largest value. All right, so let me do a file, save all here, and I will run it. All right, I will again change my share. And you'll notice now, what do we have? Original, ascending, smallest, descending, largest. So 2 more things to do, and then we can put this particular one to rest. All right. And what are those 2 things that we want to do? Well, the first thing that we want to do is we want to print out the sum. And after we printed out the sum, we want to print out the average. So to figure out the sum, all I have to do is add all these. And that's as simple as anything that we've written so far in here. All right. Again, like I said, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything else. This isn't rocket science. All right. It really and truly, when you start thinking about it, at least ideally, it's going to start making some sense to you. So I'm going to go back up to here. And I'm going to put in another routine that's going to be called calculate and display sum of array elements. And we need the entire array in there again. I know that's a long name, but I'm trying to make it as descriptive as possible. So this routine adds sums all array elements and prints out the sum. All right, so static void, got that again. Again, this is an int bracket n. Oops. I don't know how I did that, but I goofed that up. All right, so again, all we want to do in here is add these. Well, I need to put it into something, so I'll make an int that I'll call sum, and I'll set it equal to 0 to begin with. Then all I want to do is loop through the array. So for int LCV equals 0, LCV is less than numbers dot length, and it's n, not numbers. Remember, that's what we renamed it here, was n. So while it's less than n dot length plus LCV. All right. So all we have to do in here, because it's simple, is to say sum plus equals n LCV. That's literally, now it's going to run through that 25 times and add up all the values. All right. So let me steal this. I don't need this anymore. Whoops, try rid of that. So outside of my loop, I can now write down the sum of all 25 array elements. All right, and then here, all I have to put in here is sum dot toString. So there's that. Okay. Now I'm going to do a file save all. And I'm going to run the program again, which will necessitate me again changing my share. And you notice that now there's the original ascending smallest, descending largest, and there's my sum. Now, normally, not always, but normally, the average array element size will be around 50. So you typically are going to get a sum that's going to be between 1,200 and 1,400, something like that. So we're going to do the average in just a second. All right. So wanted to explain something though first before we do the average. And you may have noticed this, you may not have, and either way it's fine. But in all these routines, so I'm going to go back to here. I'm passing the array, I'm passing the array, I'm passing the array, I'm passing the array, I'm passing the array. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 routines that we've written so far. And out of those 7 routines, in 5 of them, I'm passing the array. What is that? Why am I telling you that? Because we did not make the array global. This is not global. It's defined inside of main, so it's local to main. But if I take this out and I put it up here, all right, so I put it up there and I say here, I'll just put a comment here that says, I got to bring up my constant too, sorry. So if I come up here and say now, global constant, oops, I don't want to do that. And I come here and I say global variable. All right, and that's my number of array elements. And of course, that is my numbers array. Why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because now I don't have to pass this here or here or here or here or here. Now it's giving me errors. Why? Because it's expecting in all those routines that I'm passing in an array and I'm removing it from everything that's in here now. Don't worry, we'll fix all this in just a second. But every time now we're passing that in. Now we still need this int smallest. We don't need that. And again, there's a lot of mistakes in here, but we're going to fix them in just a second. We still need the int largest. All right, but we don't need any of these. Now, everywhere in here that I've used the word n, just an n, and I'm getting all those errors, watch what happens as soon as I change it from n to numbers. All right. And why are you giving me an error? Oh, that would probably help too. Still giving me errors. So let's see why. Class program. Oh, since we're using it in main and I'm declaring it outside of main, I need the word static in there. Okay. Now those errors are gone. See that? All right. And I'm going to replace all those ends that I have in there with numbers, and I'm going to do that quickly. But there's a reason that I decided to do it like this, and I decided to show it to you like this. All right, so just bear with me for just a second as I put all this stuff in there. So that's, I think that's everything. Let me just save it and run it, make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, I still get output. You don't have to worry about it. I got similar output. Now, but what I'm trying to show you is this. Over 70% of the routines were using the array. In that case, it's not really a bad thing to make it global. Then I don't have to worry about passing it all over the place. All right. If I was only going to be using that in one routine, then there would be no sense making it global. But there's no firm and hard, fast rule that says if it's this many, you make it global. If it's this many, you don't. What you should try to do is you should try to have as few global variables as possible in a program. But you'll notice now it's much easier. I still have to pass in number 0 for these two because I'm not passing in the whole array. I'm only passing in part of the array. All right. But it's a little cleaner looking. All right, there's only one more thing to do. We're going to do that, then we're taking our first break. And that is we're going to figure out the average. All right. Well, in here, what we just did was the sum. Okay. But once I remove, since this has got a void return type, it's not returning anything. So if I call from in here, which I could do, but if I call from in here, do the average, it doesn't know what the sum is that it's supposed to divide. So I'd have to basically add them up again, which would be a waste of time. So how do I get around that? Well, rather than calling this routine from main, I'm going to call the routine from inside of the sum. So I'm going to call calculate array average and display. Now again, as always, I'm getting that error. I'm getting that error because I have not written that yet. So I'm going to write it right now. So static void. Now, wait a minute. You said it needed the sum. Yes, it does. So we have to pass the sum in. All right. So it'll need that integer value. We'll call it sum. We'll give it the same name. It doesn't matter. This is a very simple routine. All right. So I want a decimal in here because I'd said that I wanted it to 2 decimal places. So decimal, we'll call it AVG for average. And that equals sum divided by numbers dot length. The problem with that is I'm dividing an integer by an integer. All right. So it's going to throw away any decimal portion. I want to keep that. So I'm going to cast this to type decimal. All right. And then now all I have to do is something like this. So I've written things for every one of these. Let me put a little comment there too. So this routine averages all array elements and prints out the average. All right. So this will now be AVG. So the average of all 25 elements. All right, it should give me that. I'll have my read line so it doesn't fly off the screen. Let me save this. So file, save all, let me run it again. All right, and before, let me change my share. And now what you should notice on the screen is I've got all 7 routines. All right, there's actually 8 routines in here. First, we had to fill up the array. Then we printed it out in original order. Then we sorted it and printed it out in sorted order. Then we grabbed the first sorted element, and that became our smallest. Then we sorted it in reverse by running, in descending order by running the reverse. Then we again grabbed the first element, or the 0th element, I should say, because that's the largest. Then we added all 25 together. Then we added all 25 together and we divided by 25. So again, you can see it's not perfect. All right, in a real perfect world, this would come out to 50. I will tell you that if I have run a program like this 1,000 times, there maybe has been once where it's even been close to 50. It's usually a little over or a little under. So before we take the break, let me ask you real quick, do you have any questions? I mean, does it make sense what we just did?
Yeah, definitely. This
Okay.
cleared up a lot of the stuff about arrays.
All right. So what we're going to do then after the break in just a moment is, and what I'm going to do during the break is I'm going to build the interface so we don't have to waste a lot of time doing that. We can just concentrate on the logic. All right. So we're going to rewrite this program and we're going to rewrite it as a GUI app and see how much of the code from this console app we can go and bring into this. So let's take 10 minutes. All right. And I'll build the GUI during that time, and let's meet up again at 9:10, please. Thanks. All right, it's 9:10. I'm hoping you're back. And if you are, Grant, can you tell me, do you see on the screen right now the interface that I built for the program?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. So probably the most complex interface we've looked at thus far because it has 12 buttons on it. It also has what's called a list box. All this is going to do is it's going to show the 25 numbers in here. That's its sole job. Okay. So the first one, I'm going to kind of do these a little out of order, but when I clear the list box, if I click that button, I just want everything in here to go away. So I'm going to write that one first. All right, and it's one line, so it's not hard. So it's LST numbers array dot items dot clear. That's it. So I have now written, they're not all that small, of course, but I've now written that particular one. All right. So let's just do the one up above it. So this is for putting in new numbers. All right. Maybe I should have done that one first. So at least they'd be in some kind of order. I think I can move this down and it won't hurt anything. We'll find out right now. There. All right. So what do we want to do? Well, when we click this button, we want to generate 25 new numbers and we want to have it appear in here. All right. Now, one thing to be really leery of, let's say I click it, I get the 25 numbers, I click it again. By default, it's going to add 25 new numbers to the 25 that are in there. And every time I click it, it's just going to add 25 more new numbers. That's not typically what I'm going to want to have happen. All right. So really in here, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to call this routine. Well, I could call a button in here, but really what I really should do in here is I should call clear list box. That'll be fixed in a minute. And private void clear list box. And then paste that in. Now I can put this in. So clear list box. And this shows you why one of the reasons that you write separate routines. I could have put that right in my button. All right, but now from my button in here, I can also call clear list box. So I'm calling the same routine both when I begin to get new numbers and if I ever want to clear the list box. All right. Now, one thing I forgot to do, so we're going to do it right now, is, well, do we need any program constants? The answer is yes. All right. And I did a const int, and I just called it len for length. We can call it anything we want. It doesn't really matter. And I set it equal to 25. All right. So again, this is the size of the array. All right. And then I'm going to have a couple program variables in here that I'm going to make global also, just so I don't have to keep passing all of them from routine to routine. So variables. And we'll call this, they're not really global, but for what we've been doing so far, they are global. All right, I'm going to make about 4 of these. Int, bracket, bracket. My original array, I'm really, I called it original. All right, and I say that it is equal to a new integer array of size len. So that's going to make a new integer array of 25. But when the program's running, I want to be able to modify it. I want to be able to show the original array at any time, but I also want to modify the array at any time. So I'm going to make a copy of it, and I call this modified. And I'm going to set that also equal to a new array of size 25. And I want you to understand, so please, after I explain this, if it doesn't make sense, please ask me. And that is, these two arrays are holding the same thing. The values that are in this array will never change. The order will never change. But as I go and put it in ascending and descending, etc., this is the one I'm going to change. So hopefully that makes at least a little bit of sense. All right. Also, I want to be able to work with the sum and the average. So I'm going to take those two. So I'm going to have an int here, the sum, I'm just going to set it equal to 0. And I'm going to have another one, an int that's called the average, the ABG, and that's going to be equal to 0.0. Why? I don't want that to be an int. I could make it a decimal or a double. It really and truly does not matter one way or the other. All right. So this again is going to be the original array. Or how about this there? Array in original order. This one will be the array in modified order. This will be the sum of all array elements. And this will be the sum divided by 25. Okay, that's it as far as what we're doing in there for global stuff. So when we click the new numbers button, first thing I'm going to put in here is I'm going to put that same line you saw before. That is random R equals new random. And again, I don't expect that to make a boatload of sense to you right now. When you do that, it's typically what's known as seeding the rand. And if you don't know what that means, it's just saying that it's a line you have to run before you're able to actually generate random numbers. All right, that's all I can tell you. Okay, so I'm going to now fill up both arrays with the same 25 random numbers between 1 and 100. And let me move that down. I want to do that after I clear the list box, not before. All right. So you've seen this before in the example we just went over before the break. So I'm going to say for int LCV equals 0. LCV is less than, it doesn't matter which array I use here. So I'll just use the original dot length plus LCV. Now, I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to put a comment here that says fill up each array. First, I'm going to show you the wrong way of doing it. And there's a reason that I'm actually showing you the wrong way, okay? So I'm going to say here, original LCV equals r dot next 1 through 100. All right. Now, if I copy that line and now put modified in here, this is wrong. Because what I'm going to end up then is I'm going to end up getting 25 random numbers here, then 25 different random numbers here. That's not what I want. So I want the 25 random numbers here, but as I get them in, I want to copy them over from the original to the modified. So that's what we're doing there. And then when we're done, only one more line. Copy current array values to list box. That's it. So we want to say list box, and it's the, what did we call it? In fact, what did we call it here? LST numbers array. Okay. So LST numbers array dot items dot add. Okay. And what do we want to add to it? Our original array LCV. Now, there's a mistake. And don't worry about this. We'll fix this. That should be add. So that'll fix that. All right. The reason that this is wrong is I want to do it while I'm in the loop. So as I put a number in, I want to put it into the list box. Now, if this works, because that's the whole routine. If this works, I'm going to click the button for new numbers, and it should give me 25 numbers. If I click it again, it should give me 25 more new numbers. If I click it again, etc. All right, so file, save all. And I'm going to run it. And I know that you say that you can't see it on the screen, so I will change my share. All right, so new numbers. There's 25 numbers. Looks like I got to make it a little bit bigger. Right now it holds 24, unfortunately. All right, but new numbers, you can see how they're changing. I can also, if I want to, the clear list box works. And I can click new numbers, clear list box, etc. So that's all working. That's a good start. All right, so these two buttons are working. So we'll just go down in order. In fact, we'll do the search one last because it's the hardest, all right? But we'll do next the sort ascending, which isn't going to take very long, as you'd probably guess. All right, so I haven't done anything. I haven't, for the exit, I didn't copy in my code that we usually copy in. We'll do all that stuff. I'm not worried about that. All right, so the next thing we want to do is our sort in ascending order. And like I mentioned, that really isn't going to take long. Okay, it's really and truly not going to take long. But since we want to modularize, let's call sort ascending. We're going to get an error because we don't have anything called sort ascending. So private void sort ascending, and we'll write that one in just a second. All right, it should be pretty obvious what we want to do here. All right, and that is we want to say array.sort, and now with the one that we're going to sort is going to be our modified one because that's the one we're modifying. So these two arrays are not in the same order anymore. And when we get done with that, I'm just going to steal this. I don't need to fill up the array again, but I need to copy everything over. All right. And I think I accidentally removed a curly brace. There we go. So now this first one, all right, this should be pretty obvious. This routine clears the list box. All right. And this routine sorts the array in ascending order and then fills up the list box with its contents. Not the greatest comment, but and in fact, we say this clears the list box, that should really be right here. And where we say what this one does, it's not really there. It's down here in sort ascending. All right, so let me save this. All right, let me run it again. Let me change my share. And now, new numbers, there they are. I can clear and get new numbers, but now let's see if these are in ascending order. Looks like they're not, so something screwed up. We'll fix it. All right. And if I keep, something is goofed up here because it looks like if I keep clicking, that keeps adding more numbers. All right, so I've got to fix that as well. All right, we'll fix it. Let's do it right now. All right, so when we do this, the first thing we want to do is we want to call clear list box. Didn't do that. So that should clear it out. All right, here we are adding those to there. So let's see, trying to figure out why that's, it may have been working. All right, it may have been working. So let's just double check. So file, save all. All right, I'm going to run it. Change my share once again. And new numbers, and let's sort ascending. Still isn't working. The good news is it's not changing those numbers, but it's not doing the sort. All right, and I think I know what the problem is. You may have figured it out yourself. I don't know. All right, what array am I sorting? The modified one. What array am I adding? The original one. All right, I'm just going to change both of these to modified. All right, so another file, save all. Let's run it again, and let's change our share again. Hopefully, at least, hopefully, this will now be working. All right, so new numbers, there they are, sort ascending. There they are in ascending order. All right. All right, well, that's good. I mean, so far it's working and it's doing pretty much what we want it to do. All right, so let me stop this. Let me go back here into Visual Studio. Not that it's a big thing, but I am going to take this and I'm going to unlock it, make it a little bigger, just because I think it's nice to be able to see all 25 numbers. Right, hopefully that'll work. Plus, it's a little bit too wide right now. I'm going to narrow that down a little bit. There we go. All right. We'll move these over and down just a little bit. Yeah, I know. I've been told already, Ben, you're really anal about this stuff. I guess so. All right, so we've now done the sort in ascending order. All right, well, the next one, which would make sense, would be doing the sort in descending order, right? So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to write a routine that is called sort descending. Okay, it doesn't exist yet. So now it does. I'm going to copy everything from my, starting with the comment, from my sort ascending. So give me just a second here. It sorts that in descending order. All right, and then fills up the list box with its contents. So I'm going to copy all this. Now, here is one time I am going to run this one first. I want to make sure it's always in the right order before I flip it. So I'm going to say array.sort modified, array.reverse modified. All right. And when you, hopefully what you're seeing here is most of the stuff we've done thus far has been virtually identical to what we wrote in the console application. All right. Yeah, we have to make changes because we're using list boxes and et cetera, and buttons, et cetera. But we call the array.sort and the array.reverse before. So let's see if that one works. So I'm going to do a save all. I'm going to run this, change my share. So there's my numbers. There they are in ascending order. So notice 7, 8, and the last one's 92. Descending 92 and 87 at the bottom. So those all do appear to be working. So I now have a working new numbers, a working clear list box. All right. I can run sort ascending. All right, but it's given me something, and I can do a sort descending. All those four are working. This search is going to be a little special, so I'm going to show it to you, but I'm going to wait for just a moment. All right, so let me stop. Get back here. So I'm going to double click on it. So I've got that, but I'll be writing it in just a bit. Then is our exit button. Well, you know what that is already. So let me jump back into here. and paste that in. Very quickly, save this. I'm not even going to show you this. I'm just going to check to make sure that the exit button works. So if I click exit, it does come up no, exit yes. So that works. All right. So now I have the new numbers button working, the clear list box working. I've got the sort ascending working, the sort descending working, and the exit working. Now with this new numbers, I did everything right inside of here. And there's not really any problem doing that. But I'm going to pull all that code out. And I'm going to write a new routine that's called create new numbers. And I'm going to show you literally in about 1 minute why I did that. So private void, create new numbers. And I'm going to paste it back in. So this routine creates 25 new numbers for the arrays / list box. Okay, so why did I do that? Wouldn't it be a nice thing when we started the program up if we had 25 numbers in there right away? So I'm going to double click on here, and in my forms load event, I'm going to call create new numbers. Now what should happen, all right, when I do a file save all, when I run the program, okay, I now have numbers in there. You might not see it, but I just wanted you to see that. All right. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our buttons done. So let's do the sum next. All right, I'm going to keep moving this thing back down. So as you'd probably guess, when we do the sum, all right, again, not really all that much to do. All right. But I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to call a routine called sum elements. All right. But I'm going to pass in there the word true. Okay. And you might say, well, why? I'm going to try to explain it as we go on in here. So I'm going to quickly write this. So private void sum elements. All right. And I'm going to have a Boolean that I passed in, and it'll be called just call it value. It doesn't really matter. Now, you probably have seen this, okay? This kind of thing, or you might not have seen this kind of thing before. This true is this. So who cares? Well, what I want to do is I want to be able to have to come in here, and in this routine that we have right here, in this routine that you see on your screen, all right, what I want to be able to do is both do the sum, all right, and get ready to do the average. All right, I don't want to have to be duplicating a lot of code, and I don't want to have to keep running the same code over and over again. And if that doesn't make sense, hopefully it will in just a couple minutes. All right, so I'm going to come in here and make an integer variable that's called the sum, call it anything, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. And this will be the sum of all 25 elements. I need my for loop. You've seen this before. So I'm just going to grab this. Now I don't have to call clear first. I don't want to call clear first. Why? Because all I'm doing is a sum. All right. So for these right here, I want to say the sum plus equals the name of my array, which is modified LCD. Again, this is almost identical. All right. This is almost identical to what we did in the other program. All right, when we did it as a console app. Now, I want to be able to print out the sum, but I only want to print out the sum if I clicked this button. What you're going to see in a minute is when I click this button, I'm going to tell it to go in and do the sum and then divide it by 25 to give me the answer. All right. But there's going to be if I didn't do it the way I'm doing it, there'd probably be some duplicative code, which I didn't want to put in there. So I'm in here, I've got my sum. Now I'm going to say if value, and again, when I call this, I pass true. All right. In just a minute, we're going to have BTN average, and I'm going to call some elements again, but I'm going to pass in false. And again, if that doesn't make sense, hopefully it will in just a couple minutes. All right. So I had a message box, and I didn't write a separate routine here. So I just did a message box dot show the sum of all array elements. And we put that into the sum dot to string. All right. And we will give this a title of sum of all 25 array elements. All right. And I gave it the message box buttons. Okay. And this is just information. So the message box icon dot information. Okay. So this is literally going to print right out of this on the screen if we did it right. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to run the program again. I am going to change my share. Now I've got my numbers. I can put them in ascending order or in descending order. But now if I click this button, it should add all of these. So it should be somewhere around 1,250. And you notice it's 1129. So if I added all these, if I pull out a calculator, that's what those should equal. So I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or half of my buttons done. All right. So let's go and do the average next. All right. Again, I'm going to pull that down. All right. So when I do the average, what am I going to call? All right. I'm going to call, here we called sum elements. All right. Here I'm going to call average elements, AVG elements, which we haven't written yet, but we're going to write it right below here. So private void AVG elements. Whoops. All right. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to call some elements, but we're going to pass in false this time. Why are we passing? I mean, what the heck is that for? We don't want to print this. We don't want to print the sum of all the elements. We want to print instead, we want to print the average of all elements. All right. So in other words, you know, we want to do basically this. We want it to do the sum, but we don't want it to print this out. And that's what I'm telling you. All right. And I'm going to grab that message box because we're going to need it in just a minute. I'm just going to change the sum to average. So we've done this. We've got our sum now. Okay, so we've got the sum. And now we should be able to come in here and say the average, the AVG, is equal to what? The sum divided by modified dot length. But there's still a problem. All right. First of all, I spelled modified wrong, but that's not the problem. This is dividing an int by an int. So again, I want that average is a decimal, or a double rather. So I have to cast that as a double. And if you remember, the average and the sum were both defined as being global up here. And what it's telling me is, I think, is I didn't need to actually initialize those. That's why I'm getting the squigglies. All right. So if this worked, and we'll find out in literally just a second. All right. So now I will say the average of all array elements, and that's the AVG. All right. And I want this to say average. All right. So let's play computer here. So again, file, save all. Let's run it. Again, I will change my share. So I've got my numbers. There they are in ascending. There they are in descending. There's my sum, which is 1406. So let's actually, I'm going to bring this up. I'm bringing up the calculator. Even if you don't see it, it's no biggie. 1406 divided by 25. So my average should be 56.24. And it says the average of all elements is 0. Well, that's the time to find out there's a mistake in there. So we will fix it right now. All right. So the average equals double the sum divided by modified dot length. The average of all the elements is the average dot toString average. Well, there's different ways that I can check this out. I'm going to click on this line with a message box right there. I'm going to click over here in this gray area that's called the gutter area. And it all turned orangish, cyan or whatever that is. That's setting a breakpoint. So I'm going to run this. I've got my numbers, got my sum, which was 1165. Now I'm clicking average. And I want to look in here. All right, the average, it says, is 0. The sum, it said, was 0. And the modified length is 25. So this thing right here, where I'm calling sum elements and passing in false, it's not retaining the value. So there's a problem in there. So let's look. Sum elements. Oh, because I made the sum local. I already have a variable called the sum. That was what my error was. All right, I'd rather see it now. Okay, now I'm going to save this and I'm going to run the program again. Again, even if you can't see it, don't worry about it. All right, but I'm going to click the sum and it says it's 11 whatever 65. Now when I click the average, now for the average, it's changed. Looks wrong. It looks like it's 93.2. We'll have to look at that again, but it looks like I've got a number. So if I click and tell it to continue, all right, now it says the average is 93.2. Well, that's wrong. So we'll fix that. All right. So let me get rid of that breakpoint. We may need it again. We may not. And let me change my share. Well, my share should still be there. So let's see what the problem is. All right. So the sum plus equals this. That's correct. That's going to add them all up. Okay. So we call that. We've got that. So the average should equal the sum, which is what we've done in here. And we should be dividing that by 25. All right. And that does not appear to be working. So I'm going to run it again and check. So I'm going to do a save all. I'm going to run the program again. I will change my share. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So there's my numbers, ascending, descending. The sum is 1125 and the average, it's saying, is 90. I don't know how it's getting that or where it's getting that from. All right, and I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm going to go back and look at it again. All right. All right, so double the sum Okay, I'm making it a double divided by the length. The average is the average. A two string, the average. That all looks correct. Some elements. Take whatever's modified, add it to the sum. This won't print. Got the sum there. I'm going to go back and set my same breakpoint again that we had before. All right, and I'm going to run the program again. Click sum, says 1167, and click average. Now it has here for sum, it has 2334. All right, and here it's got, so this is going to give me an even bigger number, and I think I know what the problem is. All right, it's got 93.36. I think this is the problem. So we'll check right now. All right, and that is when I come over here and I've got the sum like this, before I figure out the sum every time, I want to set it back equal to 0. Because I think it's keeping it a running total. It's adding it, adding it, adding it, adding it, adding it. All right, so let's see if that fixes it. So I'm going to do a save all. I'm going to run it again. I am going to change my share. Ascending, descending work. The sum is 1290. And if I quickly bring up the calculator and I do 1290 and divide that by 25, I get 51.6. So that's what I should get when I click this. All right. And it now says in here, the average, it says 51.6. So when I run this and tell it to continue, it says the average of all array elements was 51.6. So that now works. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of our buttons working. The smallest and largest shouldn't take any time at all. It's basically the same thing that we ran before. So we will go do both those right now. Let me get rid of this. We no longer need that. All right. So the next button that we had in there was smallest. Okay. And again, when we do this, I'm just going to say display smallest array element value. Okay. And we'll write that right down below it. So this will say public void. All right. Now, the array may or may not have been sorted already. I don't know. But I'm going to say array.sort of the modified. All right. And then once I've sorted it, I'm just going to do one of my message boxes. Let me grab this. And it'll say the smallest array element value. All right, and this will then say what? Array.sort, so it'll be modified. And it'll be the 0th element dot toString. So I'm going to say smallest array element value, like that. And that should be correct. We're going to find out right now. So file, save all, okay. Run the program again, change my share again. All right, let's get new numbers works, clear it works, so new numbers, sort ascending, sort descending. Let's sort ascending again, so the smallest one should be 2. All right, the sum is 1147. The average is 45.88. The smallest is 2. Good. So that's done. So we now have another one finished. Now, to save a little time, what I'm going to do is next I am going to come in here and I'm going to find the largest. All right, but I'm going to just do a bunch of copying here because it's virtually the same code. All right, so I'm going to display, instead of the smallest, I'm going to display the largest. I get an error. That's okay. We're going to fix it in just a minute. Okay, so I want to do the array.sort and then an array.reverse of modified. All right, and now I just want to change this to the largest. And it's the same thing there, and that'll be largest. All right, so hopefully we fix that. We're going to find out in just a second. So file, save all, let's run it. And as always, change our share. Oops. Come on. Oh. All right. So new numbers, clear, new numbers, sort ascending, sort descending. These all work. All right, the exit we don't only know works. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 work. The sum works. The average works. The smallest should be 4, and it is. The largest should be 95, and it is. All right, so what's left? Okay, the median, the range. All right, the median, the range, and then to do that search. We should be able to get the median and the range done literally before we take our break. All right, and then we'll come back and we'll do the other one. So the median, really, if you've got an ascending list, the median is the one in the middle, just so you know. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 should be one of these. All right, but we're going to write that one now. So very little code. So when we come back over here for median, okay, I'm going to call find the median, which hasn't been written yet. So let's write it. Private void find the median. All right, so let's do that right now. And the first thing I want to do is I want to sort this into ascending order. All right, I could just call a reverse.sort, but I've got a routine called sort ascending. All right, I do have one. I don't know why it's not calling that. Should take that. What's the problem here? There's sort descending because I spelled ascending wrong. All right, hopefully that fixed it. So there. So we call sort ascending. So it's in ascending order. Int median equals, well, how many elements do we have? We could say modified dot length, or we could just say len divided by 2. And then we will do a message box dot show to find the median. Okay. Whoopsie. Try that again. I want just this. No, I guess I did have it, but I'm going to get rid of that. All right, so the median array value, okay. And that should be, let's see, modified median to string. And we'll say here, median array value. Hopefully, at least, hopefully that one's done. So let me save it. Let me run it again. And I've got an error. So let's see if we can figure out what that error is. And I'm pretty sure I know what it is. It's because I spelled ascending wrong. There it is. That's probably what that error was. And it's still wrong. So it's ASC. There we go. So that should clear up any errors I had. And it did. So let me change my share. Now I've been continuously running all of these. I'm hoping you agree with me that they all work. So I'm just going to go into median. It should sort it in ascending order. And it does. And it says 50 is the one basically in the middle. So 1, 0, well, let's just count. There's 25 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. Well, that isn't right. So something is goofed up with that. So we'll have to fix it. All right, because it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. Or wait, try it again. Should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, it is right. 13. 13 would be right in the middle because there's 12 above it and there's 12 below it. So it actually is working. So we've now got that working. The last one to do in here before our search, which we'll do after the break, is the range. And the range here is just the biggest number, 81, minus the smallest number, which is 3. So the range in there is 81 minus 3, or 78. Well, right now it doesn't do anything. We have to write that. So let's write that. We'll take another break, and then we'll come back and we'll write the search. All right. So let's see. All right. So to do the range, okay, we will call find the range. Okay. And private void find the range. All right. Oops. I don't know why I keep doing that, but I do. All right. Now, we don't really have to do it like this, but I can. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call sort ascending. So you know now that the smallest value is now at location 0. You know that. All right. So I'm going to make, well, let's do this. We'll say int the smallest equals modified 0. Okay. Then we'll call, we don't have to do it this way. It's a little overkill, but I'm going to call sort descending. And now I'm going to say int the largest is equal to modified 0. All right. And then one more, I'm going to say int the range equals the largest minus the smallest. All right. And then I'll grab my message box, just change it a little bit. Oops. Not good. All right. Move all that over. And say the range of array elements. And this will just be range, the range. Okay. And range of array elements. Put an S on there. Okay. Save. File save all. Run the program again. Change my share again. All right. And if I do a sort ascending, it should be 96 minus 1. So if I did this correctly, all right, it should be 95 for the range. Now, when I click the range button, it's gonna, like that, do it in ascending, then back in descending order, but it should still show me 95. And it does. And you'll notice it's in descending order. So it's subtracted from 96, it's subtracted 1. All right. So we'll take a break literally in about 30 seconds to a minute. But what I wanted to show you first is the only one that we have left now. You know this. The only one that's left. So we've done new numbers, clear, sort, ascending, sort, descending, exit, sum, average, smallest, largest, median, and range. We've got 11 to 12 done. We want to do search, and there's different ways of doing search. All right. The way that I decided to show people was we're actually going to go into another programming language and call a routine from that language because it'll be a little bit more self-evident of what we're doing. All right. And the only reason I'm telling you that is I'm going to come in here and under my project, I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to choose, let's see, add, but now I'm going to go down to the middle and find reference. And it gives me this kind of goofy looking thing here. And anything that's got a check is things we have in here already. And you can see we have almost nothing really. But I want to find one that's called Microsoft Visual. You have to spell it right. So Microsoft Visual Basic. Well, it's not finding it, so I'm just going to type in here Visual Basic. There it is. I want to add that one. So I went to add reference, and I'm going to check that right there. And I'm going to click OK. All right. Now, when I go back at the top of my program where I've got all those statements that are doing all that using, and again, I don't need any of these. They're all gray, which means I'm not using them. But I'm going to put one more using in there that says using Microsoft Visual Basic. That means I can now go into the Visual Basic programming language and use one of the routines that's in there. Is that cool a thing? Well, it depends on your version of what's cool, but I kind of think it is just because we're going in and we're in one language and we're going to be grabbing stuff from another language. Okay, which I think is kind of neat. We'll do that after the break. So we will incorporate this one, which we'll call do the search. And I'll put it right down below here. So private void do the search. All right. So we will do that after the break. It's 10:03. Let's cut our break to 12 minutes and come back, please, at 10:15. All right, I'm back. I'm hoping you're back. And we're going to write the do the search. All right, not a lot of code, maybe 10 or 15 lines, something like that. If you are going to search for something, what you search for has to be in ascending order. I think we talked about that yesterday. So the first thing I'm going to do is call sort ascending to assure that my thing is in ascending order. Now, I'm going to basically, I'm going to use what's called an input box. We've used message boxes before, but message boxes show output. C# doesn't technically have an input box, but Visual Basic does. That's why I added that reference to Visual Basic. So I'm going to say string. You'll see this when we run the program. I just call it value. I can call it whatever I want. Equals interaction dot input box. And then inside of the input box is what do I want this to show? And I want it to say number to search for. All right, and that literally is what that's going to be. All right, and we'll put a title in there of search. And I don't know if this will work right or not, but you can try to position this on the screen. So I don't know how well my positioning is going to be with these numbers I'm putting in, but I'm trying it anyway. This is the default value. So I'm going to say it's going to default to search for 50. But this is where I'm going to put it on the screen. So I may have to move it a little. So that's no biggie. 455. Okay. All right. So that'll make the input box. And then I want to take that value. All right. Because that value was a string, but I want to convert it into an integer. Okay. So I'm going to say int the value equals convert dot to int 32 of value. Now, the program will break when it comes in here. If it says what number do you want to search for, and if I leave it blank or I put hello in there, the program will break. We've already done error handling, so I'm not going to do that right now. So I'm going to say int result equal. Now I'm going to call another one of our array methods, array dot binary search. And what am I searching? I'm searching the modified array, which I just put in ascending order. What am I searching for? I'm searching for the value. All right. And if it's there, it's going to return, basically that it was found in the array. If it's not there, it returns -1. All right, or some kind of a negative number. So I'm going to say here, if result is less than 0, and again, that means the value being searched for not in array. All right, well, let's give it a message box that basically tells them that. So I'm looking for a message box here. I guess it's too early. So I'm going to grab one of my message boxes that I used before. Again, probably would have been a little cleaner to have written one generic message box thing and then pass stuff into it. I didn't do that. Probably would have been a cleaner way to do it though. So I'm going to say, the value plus, and I got to let you know what the value is. So that was the value dot toString. Now I want to tell them that it's not in the array. So I'm going to add to this. I'm going to say was not found in the array. All right. What are you doing here? Come on. What are you doing? And for my title, I'll just say element not found. And what we typically do in here, same stuff. Now, else, it was found. So if we hit the else, it was in the array. So else, I'm going to again just grab everything that I had in here and say the value being searched for was in the array. So I'm going to say the value was found in the array and element found. That's it, to my knowledge. So let's check. So I'm going to do a file save all. I'm going to run the program again, make sure I didn't break anything. I didn't. I'm going to change my share. And I am going to basically try every button because they all should be working now. New numbers works. Clear list box works. Ascending works. Descending works. Sum, I'm going to take for granted that that works. Average, same with that. Smallest is 2. Largest is 99. 99 minus 2 is 97. So that should be our range, and it is. Median says 48. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is 48. So that's working. All right. I don't worry about exit because I know the exit does work. All right. But I'm going to search now. That's not bad. It's pretty much in the middle of the screen. It says, what number do you want to search for? Well, let's look for one we know is not there. 3. I know 3 isn't there. So it comes back. The value 3 was not found in the array. I got to put a space in there, but it's no biggie. All right. So let's try it again and let's search for one that is in there. 48, right in the middle. 48. The value 48 was found in the array. All right. So it appears as though at least we now have a completed program. I do want to change this. We'll put a space there. Whoops. A space there and a space there. And you don't have to see me run this because I just want to make sure that that looks okay. 5 was found in the array and 53 was not. Okay, now it works. So that's everything. All right, I'm going to go on and start doing another program, but let me ask first, Grant, I take it that you're still here. And do you have any questions on what we just did?
No, I think that makes sense. It's a lot to take in with this.
Yeah, I
this
agree
stuff.
with that. I agree with it, and I understand it. You know, I really do. All right.
Like watching you do it makes sense. So
Yeah. Well, I've had people say that, you know, you do it and it makes sense, but when I do it, I don't know what I'm doing, and I get it. You know what I mean? There usually is, I don't know, hopefully you won't find this offensive, but typically most people find a come to Jesus moment. All right, when, oh, wow, that's what you meant, type of an idea. So I'm trying, especially because these examples are a little bit more complex, to do quite a few of them. All right, so now we're going to do another thing, and I want to show you a concept that we really haven't talked about before. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. And again, I'm going to do 2 more programs. I'm going to do the same program twice. Once I'm going to do it as a console, and then once again as a GUI. We'll get all the console done and part of the GUI done before we take our last break, but you'll still be done no later than 11:30. All right, I don't think. So go to my solution, right mouse click. I want to add a new project. I want it to be a console app, and I'm going to call this Array Lookup Console. All right. And there it is. Okay, I'm going to cut that way down and cut that way down. I'm going to remove all of these as I usually do. And I'm going to put a using static system.console. Now I didn't write a comment beforehand, so I'm going to literally write it right as you're watching. And I'm going to say this is a fairly simple array lookup program. there will be 3 parallel arrays. One for first name, one for last name, one for grades. All right, I'm going to look real quick because I literally wrote this right before I came in here this morning. So let's see. All right, I think in this one, because I changed the other one. So the user can search for the presence or absence of a first name or a last name. Okay. And what's new in here is this. We haven't really talked about parallel arrays before. We're going to do that right now. In fact, so I just am trying to let you understand here that we're writing 3 different arrays, but when I say that they're parallel arrays, it means they're both going to have the same number of elements, and we're going to be able to loop through all of them at the same time. All right, that's what I want you to understand. Okay, so I'm assuming that we're working with students here. I mean, it's just an assumption I'm making. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what I'm assuming. All right. Now, we talked about this before, that when we do this, do we want to declare our arrays here, which means they're global, or do we want to declare them here, which means we're going to be passing them all over the place? And I've talked about, hopefully you've understood that, the benefits of making them global, meaning you don't have to worry about passing them. But the bad thing about making everything global is you can have what are referred to as side effects. Sometimes a side effect is what you want. And what a side effect is it's when one routine changes the value of something. And what you get when you make those arrays global is any routine can change the value of anything in the array. That might not be what we want. Since this is a simple lookup, we're going to make everything global in here. All right. Since it's a simple lookup. And if you say, I don't know what a lookup means, you're going to see this. It's not really a super long program, but I'm going to create a couple program constants. And I'm going to have, constants. I just called it num students. And I set it equal to 5. I just assume we're working with 5 students. All right. In fact, I think that's the only constant I had in there. So, all right. Then we're going to have our program, we'll call them our global variables, and there will be 3 of them. String, bracket, bracket, first name equals new string nums, oh, hello. Num students, string, bracket, bracket, last name equals new string num students. All right, and finally, int bracket, bracket, stud grades or student grades, and that's going to be equal to a new int of size num students. So what we have done here, please feel free to ask if it doesn't make sense after I explain it. All right. But what we have done right here is we've created 3 arrays. One will hold 5 first names. One will hold 5 last names. One will hold 5 grades. All right. And hopefully all that makes sense. I'm not, again, going to do a lot of error handling here. So for a grade, if I put in a negative number, or I put in some astronomically high number, that's fine. Okay, we don't care about that right now. We're trying to write what's called a lookup program. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to let the user input 5 first names, 5 last names, and 5 grades. All right, we could do it all in main, but I didn't really want to do that. So I just wrote a routine that was called input info. Now, if we took these arrays and declared them in main here, we'd have to pass those arrays to this routine. Since we made them global, we don't have to do that. So right below here, I'm going to write static void input info, and we're going to write it right here. All right. And it's not going to be that different from what we've done in the past. So I'm going to loop through this 5 times. So I'm going to say for int LCV equals 0. LCV is less than, they're all 5, so it doesn't matter which one I choose. So first name's dot length. It's first name, not names, sorry. First name dot length. All right. Plus plus LCV. What doesn't it like here? We've got first name and we've got first name. It should not have a problem with that. We'll figure it out in a second. All right, let me grab this. First name. So what is it saying here? Oh, an object reference is required. Okay, since I define these outside of main, but I'm going to use them in main, this has to be static, and this has to be static, and this has to be static. My error.